and taking up the second half of item A13, and this is the consideration of elimination of the following standing committees: the Clear Lake Advisory Committee. And I guess I'll start with I'll start with Anthony. Anthony, you want to introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board will find in the back of the backup material for 813. It's a memorandum, a joint memorandum from Supervisor Rushing and myself. It spells out some of the reasons for the request to eliminate or disband the Clear Lake Advisory Committee. Some of those reasons that are incorporated in here gives reference to the delay and the provision and quarterly reports to the board, some complaints and recent emails of concerns about Brown Act violations, some concerns that and inconsistencies from members of CLAC where there was discussion that there may have been consensus building without a quorum, which could lead to possible Brown Act violations through serial communications. In addition, this memo touches upon the idea or concept of maybe establishing a different committee that might better serve the board, that will be comprised of people with greater science backgrounds and technical expertise. I look at the history of the Resource Management Committee and then having CLASS as a Clear Lake Advisory Subcommittee, and that metamorphosis or evolution that has taken place over time. And I think we've really gotten away from what my understanding the importance of the Resource Committee was, which was too big and wieldy and at times hard to establish a quorum. And then we come more and more reliant on CLASS, which evolved and changed their name to CLAC. And I believe in really grappling with watershed issues and looking at a holistic system of the Clear Lake Cache Creek watershed and the lake, that it might make sense to revisit the Resource Management Committee of public agency interests and stakeholders, and also bringing in people with technical expertise, science backgrounds, land use backgrounds, in order to effectively guide us and assist us in navigating the decisions that we make pertaining to Clear Lake and its watershed. One of the things that has troubled me with this committee, and I'm not singling out any individuals, just collectively speaking, is that at times I feel that personal agendas have trumped the mission of CLAC and what I know CLAC to be in terms of being advisory to the Board of Supervisors, to help guide us in making policy decisions and working with us and not against us. There comes a point to where it's moved into a state of dysfunction, in my opinion. It concerns me when individual CLAC members come to me and talk about the dysfunction. It concerns me when our own staff has been put in adversarial positions because of personalities or personality conflicts. And probably, and it doesn't really, it's not incorporating this memorandum, but what was most troubling for me is we had CLAC as a group, both individually and collectively, advocate for the lake, zebra quagga mussels as being one of the most grave issues and important issues, potentially threatening our water bodies here in Clear Lake. And when the board had taken action last year and recently going through the exercise of trying to secure revenue stream, such as a sales tax, CLAC was completely absent the first go-around with Measure E, bringing another sales tax proposal. I believe it was Supervisor Rushing specifically wanted CLAC to be engaged in that process. We brought it back to provide ample opportunity and time for serious input, serious recommendations and policy recommendations, but we've received nothing but a lack of cooperation, a lack of quorum, no written recommendations that I recall, no solid input from a collective body that should be engaged in helping guide us with a measure such as a sales tax measure that secure revenues to help protect us from the invasive species, to help us manage the watershed, to invest in wetlands, to go after and abate aquatic weeds and find ways to abate algae. To me, it's disheartening. I don't understand if that group collectively truly loves the lake and the importance of our watersheds and restoring our watershed and investing in our ecosystem, why they wouldn't be more engaged in both efforts in terms of the sales tax and trying to secure revenue so they could steer it in a direction that would at least have a majority of collective members supporting, and they couldn't build that consensus on either effort. To me, that's very troubling, and it goes to the heart of why this memorandum and the request, from my perspective, is before this body, is that this body, as time has come, to no longer be intact, in my opinion. With that being said, I do appreciate everybody's volunteering on the committee. It's a thankless job. It's not compensated, and I have respect for people at least showing up, for those individuals that do show up, providing input and having concerns about the lake and taking an interest in trying to advise us. But I do wholeheartedly believe that we can do better, and that the board can create a committee that will better serve us in advising us with the technical expertise that we need and staff needs to better serve the community and better manage Clear Lake in our watershed. And that's my initial opening remarks, and I'll reserve following remarks till after there's other comments by the board and public.
Thank you. And I will just say I don't have much to add other than to say that I know how hard members on this committee, some of the members have worked, and I too appreciate that work. I also have reflected deeply on what the board really needs in the way of advice around the lake. And we have two major needs. One is we do need that technical input, but we also need connection with agencies and other entities that have responsibility. So those two things we really need to consider as we bring this item back, and how we either reform the RMC or form the RMC with some technical advisory committee. Supervisor Smith.
Yes, this saddens me to see that we're kind of going down this path, and I can understand, and a lot of reasons why. And I really think it's partly because we didn't keep up the RMC committee. The RMC committee was real key to the way things happen, and the people, and actually probably a lot of the people that are on the CLAC don't even know, probably never even went to an RMC committee, because a committee meeting that hasn't happened in a couple of years.
Maybe 4 or 5, well, 6.
And that committee just met once a quarter, and it was UC Davis, Fish and Game, EPA, our departments. It was just a number of departments that had a vested interest in Clear Lake and the surrounding areas. It was great to get quarterly information on what was going on with the Mercury Mine site, with Fish and Game, and it was just a good way to get together and talk about things, keep things going and lively. And then the class committee was the committee that kind of carried things through on the other couple of months, that kind of did research and brought things back to the RMC committee. That's why it was the Clear Lake Advisory Subcommittee of the RMC committee. And it functioned at one point really, really well. I think, Melissa and I are the only two in this room that probably on it 15, 16 years ago, as far as the RMC and the Clear Lake Advisory Subcommittee. So, it really had a great function back then, and it seems like it really strived and made a big difference. And I just, like I said, it saddens me to see that it's going to go by the wayside, and the only way we can, maybe come up with something that's going to work better, because we've scheduled a couple of times last year for the quarterly reports, and I think we got our second quarter report in the first part of the fourth quarter or something. I don't even know now. I've lost track of it. But anyway, that's all I have to say right now.
Any other members? open it to the public.
Well, it's helpful to hear more of the background on the committee and where it came out of.
Be sure to
I'm
state your name, Chloe.
Chloe Carl,
Thanks.
and I'm testifying as a citizen of Lakeport. And I also have been doing a radio show called The Water Hour with the director of CLAC, Sarah Ryan. And she couldn't be here today. Today is a religious holiday for her. So I was informed of the letter to disband, and reading it, I was really disheartened and kind of shocked. And again, I'm a member of the community, not really knowing about the background or about where this is going. I just felt like it would have been more honorable to have brought in at least the leadership of CLAC to discuss where this is going, you know, and maybe certainly there are problems. I applied to be on the committee sometime back in the spring, but I received a paycheck from the county, so I was eliminated from that. But I'm really interested in and have been learning more about the lake in terms of our radio show and during the water monitoring that's going on. And I want to be able to share that. And I feel that Sarah is extremely knowledgeable, and I hope that she'll be included in anything that continues, since of course she also speaks for the tribe. So I've modified my letter to you, Tony, and to Denise, and that I understand where you're coming from and what you want. It's more about the process of how you go about disbanding. I served for 4 years on an advisory committee, and it was not easy. I was in the leadership for a couple of years, and there's a lot of contention. I would like to think that somehow or other we could facilitate this within the, you know, within your authority as the board when there's an advisory committee that does not, you know, respond the way you expect and want. And certainly you have this authority, but wouldn't it be well to state it to the group more directly? And so that's all I ask for today, is just to consider that, you know, you might take this matter to the existing committee who have served so well. And I'm sorry to hear that reports were late from the committee, or that they ignored. You know, that's very important considerations. But why not confront, maybe you have, I did not know, confront the committee directly. It just sets a better example to citizens like myself out here that want to serve on committees for the county. And yes, it isn't always easy to get personalities to work out. And may whatever happens, continue to work on behalf of the lake. And I know that I'll be there and be interested. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Melissa Fulton speaking as Vice Chair of CLAC, and on behalf of Sarah, who, as you heard, cannot be here today. She sent me an email just prior to leaving the office to come to the meeting, which I am reading on her behalf. As the newly re-elected chair of CLAC, I urge the board to consider the following. CLAC had no trouble meeting its quorum this last year. The difficulties finalizing quarterly reports have been due to some members insisting on focusing on specific issues such as the relationship of DWR and CLAC, thereby eating up our time. Some members are very frustrated with the Department of Water Resources not sharing the full amount of information necessary for us to operate efficiently. Two, CLAC has operated in good faith for the board, attempting to meet all our obligations, with members putting in many hours to digest the information needed to provide the board advice on the lake. Three, some of the members of the board are environmental scientists. If you wish to have more and eliminate the citizens on the committee, please ask the scientists to fill up the empty seats of CLAC first. Four, I cannot think of a single instance that CLAC is overstepping its bounds to become more autonomous, as you state. Several county documents that have been submitted to the state identifying CLAC as a committee that needs to review documents or provide public input, such as the Clear Lake Integrated Aquatic Plant Management Plan. Finally, I'm sorry I cannot be at today's meeting to address any additional issues that are brought up, but I was not informed that this item was going to be put on the agenda until it was already confirmed. Sincerely, Sarah Ryan. And I made copies of this for the board.
Any other public input?
Paula Britton, Environmental Director, Hobbema Como of Upper Lake. I've been a member of CLAC for 7.5 years since I've been here. And I do remember the RMC meetings. They were valuable, very valuable to me being new to the area. They gave us that linkage between the agencies and all the entities that are responsible for the public good and for the good of the environment. I, too, am saddened by all of this. I work for in a number of capacities, and I just recently hosted a meeting with a facilitator for the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, the Clear Lake. The same players are involved in all these things over and over, same members of the public. And if you have to bring a facilitator in so that you can agree upon a process to get through a plan, that's pretty serious. The same thing is happening with CLAC. One of the things that we don't have are any guiding principles as far as what you can and cannot do. What are the ground rules? And we've had trouble with people staying on track. There was a tendency to get disorganized. I was a past chair of this committee, and it was like herding cats all the time. It was a tough job, and that's why I'm no longer involved. I did not have the time to do this. I think that, from my perspective, and in talking with the tribe, some of my chairs been here at some of these committee meetings, there have been times when we've been terribly effective, and then there's been other times where we've been really ineffective. It depends upon the makeup of the committee. I would agree with Supervisor Farrington, there are personal agendas going on. There are personality conflicts going on. There's all this stuff, and that's normal in politics. It's normal in groups. But what isn't normal is when you cannot produce a product, when you are bringing in facilitators to help you through plans, because the same people over and over are creating the same problems and can't agree upon a process and do not respect each other enough to let those things go by for the good of the whole. So I would support what Supervisor Farrington and Supervisor Rushing have said. I found my time there to be equally frustrating as well as probably a good experience overall, because we do need to be concerned about the lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Melissa Fulton, speaking as a member of CLAC for myself. I too have been chair of this organization. I served a 2-year term. Everything that Paula said is true. When I'm volunteering my time and taking time away from my paying job to come to a committee which I feel has a tremendous amount of value, And I find my stomach tying up in knots because I know I'm going into a 3-hour meeting and I'm going to be facing an adversarial position, put in an adversarial position by a couple of members of that committee on a continuing basis. I don't like it. I don't like it because I don't feel that my time is being utilized to the full benefit that I want it to be utilized. Like everyone else on the committee, even those who put us in this position, we all love the lake, and we're there because we love the lake. However, I think for us to be effective, we need to take a look at the makeup of the committee. And I would also echo, is it Cleo? Chloe, I'm sorry. Chloe's comment. I think that prior to taking any action on this, as stated on the agenda, I would like to see Supervisors Farrington and Rushing, if you would be so kind, to sit down with the leadership of CLAC, or the committee as a whole, and let's have a discussion about this. There are people who seem to think that on the committee, who seem to think that they can run DWR better than the people who are paid to do it. And they also think that we need to come to you as a committee and tell you to tell them how to run their job. I personally don't advocate that. For an advisory committee, I don't believe in that. The RMC, unfortunately, I have to put that in the lap of the 5 of you sitting up there. Yes, it was a good committee. However, it hasn't met in several years. And I think part of the reason for that is budgets have changed throughout all segments and sectors of government. And so the people who were representing a lot of those agencies, I think they had to step back through direction from their supervisors. I don't know that for a fact, but that's part of my feeling. I think also something that might have helped us being CLAC, avoid coming to this point would be the presence of a member of the Board of Supervisors, not at every meeting, but from time to time. I remember when Jeff used to come, and those meetings were very productive. They were beneficial, and I think that that's been a missing quotient, if you will. I would hate to see CLAC eliminated. I think it can be reinvented, if you will, but I also personally feel that there are members of CLAC who, for whatever reason, may not wish to see it succeed. And those are harsh words, but it's my personal feeling. So I'm more than willing to volunteer, and my board of directors is willing to have me volunteer for these types of committees because they see the benefit. But something's got to change. We've got work to do, all of us, and we can't be sitting there for 3 hours every month listening to some of the things we listen to and being put through that sort of environment to no good result. So thank you for your consideration of my comments, and any questions you have, I'll be willing to address.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Lyons. I'm a citizen of Lakeport and Lake County, and a former member of CLAC, or class as we were at that particular time. One of the things that I think is problematic about disbanding this committee at this particular time is right now the county is using the weed management document as part of your compliance with the stormwater permit. And in that document, CLAC is referred to, or class, either way, a number of times as being actions that the entity is taking towards satisfying that permit. And if you get rid of CLAC, you're going to have to, one of the things that's going to happen is a lot of these things are going to have to be taken out of that report because it's no longer, they're no longer valid. I agree with Jeff. I think Jeff Smith has really hit on the head one of the things that is the problem. And it wasn't until I read that weed management, aquatic weed management plan that I went bingo as a former member of CLAS, that one of the dysfunctions is that there's supposed to be a technical advisory committee. The technical advisory committee is supposed to be scientifically based, and they are supposed to do the wrangling that ends up coming to you from CLAS. CLAS is supposed to be the public group that takes that information that comes from that technical group of scientists and is able to look at it and say, okay, this is what the consensus that we have on the information that we've been given. Unfortunately, CLAS has been given the job of doing that technical work that they don't know how to do. And I think a lot of the wrangling would stop if, rather than getting rid of CLAS, the actual technical group was revitalized. I think that would really be a help, and I think it would be a solution to a lot of the dissension. One of the things in the words of the aquatic plant management plan says that the technical issues, including the pros and cons relevant to the issues and courses of action identified by the Citizens Advisory Committee. This information can be presented to the community for discussion and approval through the public process, and the experts can debate the technical issues and avoid making policy. I think that that's something that maybe the board really should be looking at. I think it would be a shame to throw the baby out with the bath. It took a year and a half of a lot of the people who were really good key players on the CLAC committee just finally gave up and walked away trying to hammer out these bylaws. It took forever. To look at starting up another committee and having to go through that, that's asking for a lot. Some of that awful housekeeping has been done, and I think it's a shame not to take advantage of that and move forward and do the really important things that this committee should be doing.
Anita, I'm wondering if you can comment on the, I had asked a while back for you to take a look at the,
Stormwater?
the stormwater issue with the
Yeah,
subcommittee.
I did go through this with both Scott and Will Evans in Community Development. He sent me the documents. And on page 30 of the final order, there is a public involvement and participation program requirement that requires the permittee within the second year of the effective date of the permit to involve the public in the development and implementation of activities related to the program. The public involvement and participation program is required to encourage volunteerism, public comment, and input on policy and activism in the community. The permit also requires certain minimum implementation levels, which includes the requirement the permittee develop a public involvement and participation strategy that establishes who is responsible for specific tasks and goals. Also, the permittee must consider development of a citizen advisory committee, either a standalone group or utilize an existing group. As stated in the permit, the permittee may invite the citizen advisory group to participate in the development and implementation of all parts of the community's stormwater program. There's no requirement that the Watershed Protection District use an advisory group. This is one way that the public participation requirement can be effectuated. So essentially, the authority that any advisory group has extends only as far as your board determines to extend it. They're not autonomous, they have no independent authority, and a state agency can't vest that in them.
Thank you. Betsy?
Good morning, Betsy Kahn. I remember my first RMC meeting back in 2003, or might be 2002. I learned a huge amount. And class was actually a very functional portion of that. I remember the first class meeting I went to in 2004 where the